Welcome back, everyone, to the My Cow podcast. Sorry, it's been a little while since we've posted one of these. We've had a very busy June and July with field days and doing a whole lot of work helping to set farmers up for the coming season. And also, we've been doing a lot of work on the My Cow app, which we are hoping to release commercially in the next few months. So keep an eye on your emails and we'll keep you updated in terms of what's available there. Today, I'm going to intro a new series around unlocking farm potential with data, and specifically using Springer and transition cow data to see what we can do to improve the potential of our cows. Now, this is going to be a 6-video series covering off how we use feed, blood, cow wearable data, and other bits of data to find gaps in cow efficiency so that we can help drive production, reproduction, and also cow health. So these episodes are going to be based around learned experience, but they are grounded in peer-reviewed science. But as always, this information is to get conversations started, and it's not intended to be farm-specific advice. In today's episode, we're going to cover what a successful transition looks like. We're going to do a bit of an overview of what's actually happening in the on-farm data space. And lastly, we're going to talk about how we use that data to make better Springer or transition cow decisions. But before we get into that, have a quick look at this ad from today's sponsor, Agvance.
Hi, I'm Jason from Agvance Nutrition. A solid transition plan is crucial to start your cows off on the right foot and set your season up for success. The impact of feeding a balanced diet with the correct mineral supplementation cannot be underestimated. We've developed Premium Transition Premix to ensure we give the right mineral supplementation to your Springer cows at the right time. So get in touch with us on the 0800 number or via our website and we'll be happy to get you sorted.
So when I'm with farmers and I'm looking at whether a transition has been successful or not, there's 6 high-level indicators that I look at before we drill down into the detail. So these are condition loss, so whether we've had minimal or too much condition loss post-calving. Also whether we've had any pre-calving condition loss. We want 0 loss of condition pre-calving. And also cow condition right across the herd. Is it even or is it quite spread out where our high producing or older cows are losing a lot of condition and our younger cows are doing much better. The second indicator is looking at liver health. So have we got a really healthy liver? Are those cows converting feed really well? And is the rumen well balanced? The next one we look at is metabolic disease. The next indicator is liver and rumen health, which is linked to cow recovery. So we want to see really good appetite in the cows, really good rumen fill. So when you're looking from the back of the cow, is she nice and round or does she look a little bit more like a pear, indicating that the rumen's not overly full and that her appetite is probably not optimal. If we have cow wearables, we can look at our rumination and eating minutes. Immune system function is a really good indicator of how healthy the liver is, and also feed conversion efficiency. If the liver is not very happy, it's not going to be converting energy into milk very efficiently. And lastly, blood liver indicators. So we can actually take blood tests to look at how well the liver is functioning. Now, the third high-level indicator is metabolic disease. So are we seeing more than 2% downer cows or subclinical hypercalcemia on farm? So metabolic disease, for instance, ties back to liver function, which also links to appetite, immune system, body condition score, and smooth muscle function in the cow as well. So we'll talk all about this as we go on in the podcast and also further podcasts. The fourth high-level indicator is a strong immune system. Now, the best way to measure this is looking at our somatic cell levels coming through in the milk. But alongside that, we can actually look at some blood indicators around glutathione peroxidase or GPX and other indicators of immune system function. RFMs are a really great indicator of immune system function. If we're seeing a high level of RFMs, that's something we can go after. And also endometritis treatments. We want to be less than 15% with early scooping of the cows. And then alongside that, we want to see minimal lameness, all indicating that the immune system is functioning really well. Now, the fifth high-level indicator is an early peak milk and overall better milk production. Now, I know it sounds like something that, how can you manipulate feed conversion efficiency and milk production and even an earlier peak by getting your transition right? But if we hit all those key targets going through the transition period, what it does is it helps improve appetite post-calving and cow recovery. And what that means is that the cow's liver function, rumen function, and overall efficiency will improve a lot quicker, which actually helps her get up to peak milk earlier and will help improve the amount of, or increase the amount of milk she's going to produce over the whole of lactation. And the sixth and last high-level indicator is having successful reproductive outcomes. So that's less than 20 days or around 20 days to first cycle, which is something we can measure a lot more efficiently now with our cow wearables. Having a 6-week in calf rate around or above 68%, targeting an 88% 6-week in calf rate, and having a less than 10% empty rate with a 9-week mating. Now, I know that sounds or looks like a really a pretty ambitious target, but if we get everything lined up through transition, and we give our cows the best chance to hit each one of those 6 high-level indicators. All right, now we've got some real hefty targets to hit in terms of transition. Where does data fit into the whole piece? So it's been the rapid uptake of wearables that's really started this whole data discussion around transition and farming and what we're doing with that data. So over 30% of New Zealand dairy farmers now have some form of sensor tech or wearable on their cows. That's giving rumination, eating, activity, moving, lying, and a whole lot of repro metrics as well, which is super useful for the transition period, but also right through lactation. We're now getting a whole lot of other cow data, so body condition score, weight data with walkover weighing, using AI to become really, really accurate. We're getting lameness detection information, and other camera tech is growing really fast. So watch this space. There's a whole lot more technology and data coming at you. But technology and AI has actually allowed us to use some historic data and historic tech. So where farmers have had milk meters installed and they haven't really used them, now the potential of this data is what's led me to create My Cow in the app, to pull together this data to create value for farmers. Now I'm going to get on my soapbox here because there is a lot of value locked up in data, but there's a few fundamental things that need to be done to release that data. But before I get off my soapbox, I just want to sow the seed of how valuable that data is. And I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see increased value propositions around farm data, for overseas consumers, for people that follow the food value chains, and even our exporters and processors as well. So if you can, keep a hold of your own data and protect it, because I think its value is going to increase going forward. I've made some great connections in recent times with other people that are really passionate about utilizing farm data and helping farmers protect it. So watch this space. We're going to have some podcasts coming out soon from people I met at field days and people that I've made connection with overseas as well that are super clever in this space. So I look forward to unpacking that with you and bringing that content. Now back to the 3 fundamental challenges. So the 3 fundamental challenges around how we utilize data and turn it into insights and solution. The first one is time. So it takes a lot of time to format data, to process it, to aggregate it, and to basically get it into a form where it can be used. Now, the second challenge is applying science and experience to that data. So it's great to say my rumination minutes have gone up and my eating minutes have gone down, but what does that actually mean in real terms? So what does that actually mean to cow health and cow performance? And so that's where we need science, and also science applied and experience to actually drive some understanding around what's happening with that data. And the third challenge is aggregation. So data by itself can be useful, but when we aggregate it together, that's when it becomes really powerful. So for instance, we might see that our milk production is dropping, but we may not know why. So we look at the milk components and we might see that protein percentage is dropping as well, but fat percentage is actually going up. Now, I might say, well, that's a little bit odd that one's going up and one's going down. And so by itself, it's a little bit hard to apply that. You might say, okay, well, the quality of the diet might be dropping, but we don't exactly know. And so you go and have a look at your cow wearable data, and your rumination minutes might be going up and your eating minutes might be going down, indicating that the rumen's still working really well, but the appetite of the cow is dropping. Now that would confirm that the quality of the feed is dropping. Now, if you compare that to your pasture data as well, so your third leg of the stool, and you can see that your pre-grazing residuals have gone up and the weather has been quite hot and potentially the grass is coming under a little bit of stress, then that would confirm using those other two bits of data that the quality of the grass is dropping. So the fiber levels are going up and the ME is coming down. So that's our third fundamental challenge, is aggregation, so that we can actually get the best value out of the data. But where the rubber meets the road is how we actually use this data to make better Springer decisions. But with these next 6 podcasts, and I might throw a 7th one in as a bit of a bonus episode on feed conversion efficiency, but with these next episodes, I want to try and knock out challenge number 2 and challenge number 3, where we need to use science and experience to grab some insights out of the data, and lastly, aggregate it all together. So I'm going to do my very best to release one of these podcasts every week through transition. Right, so although there are challenges to utilizing data, there is a massive amount of potential. So although there's obvious challenges to using data and turning it into insights and solutions, there's massive potential on farm. Now, it's tricky because when we're calving, it's a busy time of the year. So the more we can automate what we're doing, the easier it is to get really good outcomes that we can measure on farm. So as I said before, this is going to be a series of 6 podcasts, and I am hopefully going to throw in a bonus 7th episode on feed conversion efficiency, which I'm just working on the content for that. Now, I want to release one of these podcasts every week, so I'm going to hold myself accountable around this, and we're going to release them through the transition period when you've got cows calving and you're on the ground making it happen. So hopefully this information is really relevant to the time when things are happening. Sorry for those autumn calvers, but I'm sure you'll still find this information useful. So podcast or episode number 1 is going to be around utilizing herbage and feed data. So what we're doing there is we're using that data to better calculate the diet. So to make sure that we're hitting the right ME, we're getting enough crude protein or protein into our cows, and we're filling them up with a good level of fiber, getting that rumen working so that those cows are calving down match fit and ready to go. That herbage and feed data is allowing us to calculate the decad, which is really important for metabolic balance. And it's also allowing us to do a mineral balance calculation to make sure we're hitting the right amount of calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sodium, and other minerals that are really critical through that time alongside your trace minerals. And then lastly, that is allowing us to create specific supplementation programs. So we're getting that herbage and feed data, pulling it all together, and basically coming up with a really efficient feed recipe for our transition and Springer cows, and also a very efficient mineral and decad supplementation plan as well. And that way we can set things up to get the highest chance of success once those cows calve and they hit early lactation. The second episode is going to be all around using blood test data. So we can use blood tests to give us an indication of how well we are taking care of calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, sodium in the cow. We can also use blood tests to test non-esterified fatty acids, or NEFAs, and also beta-hydroxybutirates, or BOHB levels in the blood. So that gives us an idea of how well or how much fat the cow's mobilizing and how well she's utilizing it, whether that liver is functioning really well or it's starting to get a little bit choked up. We can also do blood tests for trace minerals. So do we have enough selenium and copper and other key minerals going through the cow? We can also look at GPX, which gives us an idea of the antioxidant capacity. Also ties back to liver performance and liver health. And lastly, we can look at some of the inflammation indicators as well, which we're going to talk more about in episode 2. In episode 3, we're going to talk about visual observation in the paddock. So we're going to talk about appetite and recovery, what we're looking for in the cows, because you might have all the wearable sensor tech data, but what's visually happening in the paddock is also really important. It gives us a good idea of cow health, how much stress the cows are under, and also simple things like feed and mineral availability to colostrums in early lactation cows. Episode number 4 is going to be talking about rumination data. Now, this is going to be a pretty chunky episode because there's some really cool information coming through in this space now. But we're going to look at cow recovery specifically, and also how we use rumination data as a backup to what we're seeing observationally in the paddock. So you can't just look at one piece of data. You need to look at data in aggregation or collectively so that you're getting a really good set of insights around what is actually happening in the cow. Rumination data can be really useful alongside eating minutes and appetite data, so it gives us a really good idea of what's happening in the cow, specifically the liver through that transition period. If the liver's really happy and it's functioning well, we're going to have really good cow recovery post-calving, which means a good appetite. And if we get more appetite or more feed into the cow early, she's going to lose less condition and she's going to be a whole lot happier. We will look at our pre and post diet confirmation around rumen data. So is the rumination data telling us that we have nailed our transition diet and our colostrum and our early lactation diet is definitely functioning really well to maximize appetite and maximize cow performance? And then lastly, how we use rumination data and other metrics to give us an idea of cow health. Now, again, that is going to be a backup metric to what we're seeing observationally in the paddock. Episode number 5 is going to be a flow-on from episode number 4, where we're going to look at a whole lot of the other SensorTech data. So we'll look at the eating and activity metrics in a bit more detail. We'll also pull in some water intake metrics and look at how that ties into appetite. We are going to talk a bit about temperature metrics and how temperature flows into really good cow health insights. And lastly, we'll tee in some of the camera tech information as well around body condition scoring, lameness, and also the walkover weighing infrastructure, which I'm really excited about. Episode 6 will be pulling all that together by looking at the post-calving data, which is really our indicator of success, going back to our 6 high-level indicators of transition success. So what can we measure post-calving so that we can look back and say we have done a really good job of transition or we haven't? And the great thing about looking at post-calving data is in the first 2 weeks of calving, we have enough cows to start gaining some information on what's happening or what has happened to them as a transition cow, and we can start making some changes through the transition. So hopefully by the time we get to the end of calving, we've got a pretty good idea of what has or has not worked. So we want to be looking at colostrum and early lactation rumination and activity data. Gives us some really good ideas of what has happened through that transition and colostrum period. We want to look at rumen stability alongside that rumination. So if your rumination is up, down, all over the show and the rumen is not happy, so the rumen microbes are under stress, and then we can look at what's been happening through that period. It could be changing groups, cows into different herds and groups too close to calving, creating stress. It could be related to weather. It could be related to shelter. Could be related to feeding, whole lot of other things. So looking at those rumen stability metrics and rumination and also fat percentage in the milk can give us a really good idea of what's happening. We can also use our blood metrics in post-calf cows as well to look at cow recovery in terms of calcium levels in the blood. We can still look at our NEFA and BOHB levels, and then that can flow through and tell us how well the liver has come through that colostrum period and how well it's now functioning as a early lactation cow. We can look at our body condition score metrics, which are really useful to tell us how much condition the cows have lost after calving, and tie that back to what we've been doing with the Springer and transition cows. We can look at days to first cycle in our cows, which is a really good indicator of how well the cow's recovered and how well the liver is producing all the key hormones that drive reproduction. And lastly, we can use our production and milk metrics to give us an idea of how balanced the diet is in early lactation, but also how well the liver is converting feed into metabolite. And lastly is our bonus episode number 7, where we're going to talk about feed conversion efficiency. So I'm still working on the content for that, but keep an eye out, and that's going to be a real cool one because I am very passionate about helping farmers increase their feed conversion efficiency and also measuring it so that we can feed that back to our milk processors and hopefully get to a point where we can earn extra incentives for our milk. Thanks heaps for jumping onto the podcast. Keep an eye out for the next 6 episodes coming out soon on how we use data to make better Springer or transition cow decisions to unlock cow performance on our farms. If you haven't registered for our newsletter already, go to the MyCow website, which is mycow.nz, and just go to the register your interest here box, fill out that, and that just puts you on our emailing list so that we can let you know when new episodes are coming out and any other relevant information around the MyCow app and what we're doing with data. So thanks heaps for jumping on, and we'll see you again soon.